Two young professionals step into a crowded bar, hoping for nothing more than a night of laughter. But within minutes, the room shifts. Eyes lock onto them, whispers spread, and suddenly the sound of heavy boots closes in. Flashing lights, stern voices, and pointed fingers, accusations fly before they even understand what's happening. These twins aren't just being watched. They're being hunted. And yet the officers making threats have no idea who they're dealing with. What happens when those unfairly targeted aren't powerless at all? Behold the very authority their oppressors fear most. Marcus and Maya were twins who had always leaned on each other. Born just minutes apart, they shared more than DNA. They shared drive, discipline, and a quiet determination to prove themselves in a world that often underestimated them. By day, they worked as federal agents, their lives consumed with long hours, sharp instincts, and an unshakable bond. Yet outside the badge, they were just two young professionals trying to enjoy the moments they rarely had off duty. But first, please make sure to subscribe the channel and comment below from which city you are watching this video. That night, the bar was supposed to be a break from responsibility, a place to unwind after weeks of exhausting cases. The chatter of strangers, the music pulsing in the background, and the clinking of glasses promised a sense of normalcy. To anyone watching, they looked like any other pair of siblings celebrating life. But even in those casual moments, the weight of their skin color never fully lifted. They had grown used to side glances, the subtle tension when they walked into certain spaces, the unspoken question of whether they belonged. It didn't rattle them anymore, at least not on the surface. What they didn't know that evening was how quickly a simple night out would spiral into a confrontation that tested not only their patience, but their very safety. And the strangers preparing to confront them? They had no idea the people they were targeting carried secrets that could flip the entire situation upside down. The first sign of trouble came in a way Marcus and Maya knew all too well. Conversations seemed to dim when they walked past. A group at the bar leaned in closer, eyes narrowing, as if their very presence was a disruption. The twins ignored it. After all, this wasn't new. But then came the subtle cues that always led to something worse. The bartender hesitating longer before serving them, the uncomfortable shuffling from patrons who suddenly found interest in their drinks. Maya caught Marcus's eye and gave a faint smile, that familiar unspoken reassurance between them. Still, her chest tightened. She had learned to trust those instincts. Moments later, the sound of boots against the wooden floor cut through the music. Two uniformed officers entered, scanning the room. Their eyes landed on Marcus and Maya almost instantly, and the atmosphere shifted into something heavier, sharper. Conversations stopped entirely. Without warning, the officers marched toward their table, hands already hovering near their belts. They accused Marcus and Maya of matching the description of suspects wanted for a crime nearby. It was vague, flimsy, and cruelly familiar. Their tone wasn't cautious. It was hostile, sharp, designed to provoke. Marcus tried to keep his voice steady, his posture calm, though inside his pulse hammered. He had faced down dangerous suspects, negotiated with armed criminals, yet something about standing unarmed, surrounded by strangers in a place where no one spoke up, felt far more suffocating. The questions weren't really questions. They were accusations laced with assumption. Why were they here? Who did they come with? Did they have identification? Each word carried the weight of suspicion, sharpened by prejudice. When Marcus reached for his wallet, one officer tensed, hand gripping his holster. The room froze. A few gasps slipped from a crowd. In that instant, Marcus realized just how quickly this could spiral. One wrong move, one flicker of impatience, and the night could end in disaster. Maya's hands curled into fists under the table. She had trained for years to control adrenaline, to think clearly under pressure, but rage pressed against her ribs like a fire she couldn't contain. She knew exactly what was happening. They weren't being questioned, they were being cornered. The officers' voices grew louder, commanding them to stand, to empty their pockets, to prove they didn't belong on the wrong side of the law. Each order dripped with arrogance, as if guilt was assumed and innocence impossible. And through it all, not a single person in that bar stepped forward. Eyes avoided theirs, silence hung heavy, complicity filling the air. Every second stretched unbearably long, each breath tight with fear. The twins knew they were moments away from something irreversible. Their training screamed for restraint, for calm, but their instincts, their very survival, demanded readiness. Because if the officers made one move too far, Marcus and Maya wouldn't just be victims. They would have to reveal who they really were. And that revelation would change everything. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. One officer lunged forward, grabbing Marcus by the arm and yanking him up from his chair. The sudden force rattled the table, glasses crashing to the floor. Gasps erupted around the bar, but still, no one moved to intervene. Marcus steadied himself, eyes locked on the officer's grip, every muscle in his body fighting the instinct to strike back. He wasn't just a black man being manhandled in public. He was a federal agent who had sworn to uphold the law, and now he was being crushed under the very weight of it. Maya rose instantly, stepping between her brother and the second officer, whose hand now hovered over his weapon. Her voice cut sharp through the noise, demanding they stop, but the command was drowned in the suffocating silence of the room. Her heart hammered so violently she thought her ribs might crack, but her training forced her to hold steady. The officer shoved Marcus harder, accusing him of resisting. Every second dragged like a countdown to catastrophe. Maya's hands trembled at her sides, fury and fear colliding, her body screaming for action. She could feel the eyes of the crowd burning into their backs, but no one spoke. No one dared. And then Marcus's badge slipped from his jacket pocket, hitting the floor with a metallic clang. The sound cut through the chaos like thunder. Both officers froze. Their eyes darted to the emblem gleaming under the bar's dim light, the unmistakable seal of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The air shifted in an instant. The silence wasn't just heavy now, it was suffocating. The officers' faces drained of color, their postures faltering, as the realization of who they had been threatening sank in. Marcus straightened, his voice low, steady, and sharper than steel. He had been pushed to the edge, but now it was their turn to feel fear. Because the night's power dynamic had just flipped, and nothing in that room would ever be the same again. The bar remained frozen in silence as Marcus bent to pick up the badge. He held it firmly, his gaze never leaving the officers who had moments earlier treated him like a criminal. Their bravado had evaporated, replaced by stammered excuses and nervous glances. Maya stood tall beside her brother, her presence unshakable, as if daring anyone to challenge what had just been revealed. The officers backed away, their voices faltering, mumbling about misunderstandings. But the damage had already been done. It didn't matter that Marcus and Maya carried authority that few could question. In those critical moments before the badge was seen, they were just black individuals, vulnerable, profiled, and cornered. The truth of their profession had only saved them because of chance, not justice. As they left the bar, the crowd remained silent. Not one person spoke up, not one voice defended them. That silence lingered longer than the confrontation itself. It was a reminder that racism doesn't always scream. It often whispers, hides, and waits for a moment to strike. For Marcus and Maya, the incident reinforced a brutal reality. No level of achievement, no title, no badge could shield them from prejudice. Their story wasn't unique. It was a reflection of countless others who never got the chance to flash proof of authority before tragedy struck. And that's the haunting truth we're left with. How many lives are destroyed because they can't reveal something powerful enough to stop the injustice in time? How many names will never be known because silence outweighed courage? So ask yourself, what role will you play the next time you see injustice unfolding before your eyes? Will you stay silent, or will you speak up?